welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTraining.tv, where every day at this time, whatever this time is for you, I'd say 1 o'clock Pacific, but it's early in Australia apparently. We want to welcome you to some FileMaker training on the FileMaker platform. Why do we do training on the FileMaker platform? Well, FileMaker is software that allows us to be really successful in saving time and energy and money within various organizations, whether we're an internal employee at an organization or we're an external person that's hired to help. Our job is to make people successful. My job is to help train you and help you be successful. Your job is to build awesome solutions for your customers and to go down that road and be successful with that. So let's talk about the upcoming broadcast schedule before we get into today. Today is on the HAL 9000 automated ChatGTP and how you asked it a question and it got the right answer partly by accident and partly it got really wrong answers. And so I will just simply say that that's an interesting AI conversation, right? If you want to support the channel, it's all free. It's all free. It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye, right? That kind of thing, right? So it's all free and fun here, as long as we can pay the bills. So to support the channel, we have these bundles that you can purchase. This is where Margaret presses a button, and then you can purchase one of these bundles and help support the channel. All right, so here we go. We're on my screen right now. So Foxy Jack sent me this message. It was a really interesting message. He said, hey, I asked GDP that Rich said something about Richard sucks. I don't trust Richard. So ChatGPT, tell me the common mistakes that FileMaker developers make when developing a solution with FileMaker. So here's the thing about AI. AI, everyone thinks it's brilliant, but it's really kind of stupid. And what the AI system did is it came up with software development mistakes, which was interesting. It came up with software development mistakes. So the idea was that you asked it a question about FileMaker, but it's not very smart about FileMaker, so it just goes out generically and makes shit up. Now, in some cultures, some of you are from cultures like that, where if someone asks you a question, it's better to give an answer than to say, I don't know. Even if you fabricate the answer, completely make it up. The culture, it's kind of like it'd rather make up a bad answer and give it to you than tell you it doesn't know. In my culture, at least where I roll, if I don't know, I prefer people say, I don't know, right? And that way I know that anything that comes out of their mouth needs to be probably verified or corrected. ChatGTP works on this other methodology where a bullshit answer is better than no answer at all. And so what I thought, I was looking at this list, I'm like, this is really interesting. So I wanted Jacob Taylor to get with me on this. Some of you are not going to want to hang out for this entire conversation, but let me just tell you up front that the summary of today's conversation is that ChatGTP can be useful. However, what it's most useful at in a practical standpoint is doing repetitive, mundane tasks. And Nick has done these. In fact, Margaret, if you want to here's a good moment. Go grab the ChatGTP links from where Nick has had conversations, like a whole week on this, where he shows how using ChatGTP can help you with tedious imports and organizing the fields that come in imports, tedious things that you already know how to do in FileMaker, but you don't want to do it because it's a lot of hard work. It's like you're going to clean the house before you sell the house, or you're going to leave your apartment for a new apartment. You want to clean it before you leave. If you're one of those people, cleaning it's going to be a real pain in the ass. On your hands and knees, scrubbing the floor with brushes and bristles and cleaning all the junk out. That's where ChatGTP is good. Asking ChatGTP about, hey, how should I build a solution, or what stock should I buy? Crazy big things like that. Those are really bad questions to ask ChatGTP. And so Foxy Jack did a really awesome thing. He did something in ChatGTP, and it came back with some interesting answers, and he shared it with us. And I thought it was very educational. And I initially thought it was high, and Jacob told me, oh well, it's accurate in so much as that you're not talking about FileMaker. And so when you ask ChatGTP about stuff and it's FileMaker based, it's not going to give you necessarily FileMaker answers. It's going to take its totality of IT programming understanding, which includes JavaScript and C and C# and BASIC and every other programming thing it's ever heard of, Fortran. And it's going to take all that knowledge together and try to give you a summary of all that. So what this said right here, what Foxy Jack wrote was, what mistakes do FileMaker developers make when they're building FileMaker solutions? What ChatGPT heard was, what programming errors or what things do people do when they're programming in general? That's the answer you got. That's not what I asked. That's what you got. So understand that chat, once again, this is like this high level idea. ChatGPT sucks at. So let's go through this lack of planning. Okay. That's a universal software thing. Jacob, you can interrupt and throw a hand up or anything. Lack of planning. Now,
Yep.
let me say something about FileMaker real quick. FileMaker is great at organic spiral development. So organic is this idea that it grows organically, and you put some fertilizer in it, and then comes up and it grows, and the tree grows up, and then it splits, and you have two trees growing on one tree, and where it happens. That's organic. It's their customers' needs change, so FileMaker can change with it. The two development methodologies that you've typically heard are spiral, which means that spiral actually implies some sort of organization. Imagine spaghetti that just goes everywhere. That's actually a better example of the kind of the organic, as opposed to waterfall, which is where the U.S. government says we want a database for all the drivers who are licensed in the state of, Melbourne, Australia, or something like that. We want a database, and it's going to have these 12 fields and these 58 reports, and you're going to build it to work on this big part. And here's a fixed cost quote down to the penny of how much that costs. That's waterfall. That's the opposite of spiral. And spiral leads us to the idea of agile. And agile is this idea where you build a little bit and then people test it. And then meanwhile, you're working on another little bit and people are testing it. And so there's this really rapid iteration between you building little chunks and people testing it. That's really good for organic feedback too. As a good FileMaker developer, FileMaker is great at that. So the lack of planning is more fatal in other systems that are less flexible, because FileMaker is so flexible. I'm choking here. Jacob, FileMaker is so flexible. Why is FileMaker flexible? Jacob, go.
For sure. So it's basically like, strictly speaking, it's less of a problem in FileMaker because FileMaker can actually easily support random developers. They may not have, they may not be sitting there planning their features out or their layouts or any of that kind of stuff. I've actually been having a little bit of fun doing that at RCC lately, working on some of our internal systems with basically no, plan per se. Just like, there's like problems here, right? Bugs or, some database, like there's a flow someone's using or a flow some of our staff use, and they're like, Jacob, this sucks. It could be better. And I go, great. And I just work on it. And this isn't a planned thing. I have an idea. I have a problem I'm trying to solve. But it's definitely not like a waterfall where I'm like, all right, I'm going to lay out my layout halfway to the pixel. I've got wireframes or something over here. There's going to be 7 processes that runs on that layout. Here are the, user decision steps, laid out for them. You can do all that. And if you do, actually, you have a really easy program to write because you've already written it once. So.
All right. So I'm writing on requires customers to exactly know what they want.
Yeah.
In advance, and almost this is never the case. Okay, so I'm just going to put that note in there. So overly complex relationships. Margaret, do we have the progression of learning? Send that to me in Slack here in the same thread you had. Send me the image of progression of learning. So let's talk about this. Is a really good one too. FileMaker is like these three or four elements that make up a single tool. It's a database engine, which has tables and relationships and this sort of stuff. But a database engine is not a database engine by itself looks like an Excel spreadsheet. Okay. So FileMaker, a database engine is just like columns and lines and stuff like that. If you've seen SQL, that's kind of what that is. Then FileMaker gives you a graphical interface on top of the database engine. They also give you a programming layer, a programmatic layer, a business workflow layer. So you can program scripts, code in there to execute against the UI and against the database. Okay, that's essentially what it is. There's these 3 components. Okay, it has a lot more to it. It's a complete package, but it has that. Now, here's the rub: you can solve any problem more than one way. And this is something you'll see Nick do sometimes, and it really drives me bonkers with Nick. I love Nick. And every senior engineer has, a lot of people, you get to senior engineer, they largely agree on things, but then they'll start their opinions, they'll deviate a little bit. So I live mostly in this role right here as an intermediate developer, right? That's me. I can bootstrap up here to this intermediate level. Actually, I mostly hang out in here, but I really don't hang out in here because I don't have time, because I'm basically running the company and being an instructor and all this other stuff. And so I can't really hang out in here. but I hang out in here. Now, the issue is that when you start here, remember what I say about this. When you're brand new, and I'm talking to some of you, know who you are, because you know you're more brand new than not, is that you just want it to work. You don't care how you got it to work. You just want it to work and work reliably. Over in here, we get to this area where we start to make things work, but we want to control when FileMaker processes and does things, right? Because you can do things in FileMaker where it does it automatically behind the scenes for you, or you can write it in such a way that's in a script where you press a button and it does the thinking for you precisely. And the rub with FileMaker is that it will, if you build it like in a lot of ways over here, it will automatically do it like a summary field. I want to get a total on a page. Here's a summary field that will give me a total on a page. Now, every time I go to that page, that summary field is going to update. That's okay. Then we add 30 or 40, 50 people and 1 million records. And then every time you hit that page with a summary field on it, maybe it spins a little bit. You get a little bit of a spinning beach ball. There's a sluggishness. It's not super fast. Then it displays. So the issue becomes one where you need to think about the idea that you want to control when it does the processing, right, Jacob? I mean, you're bobbing your head up and down, right? You want to control when it does the processing. And that gets back to this idea of overly complex relationships. If you try to solve a problem with a very complex relationship, the problem is you're not precisely telling FileMaker when it's going to run. It's going to update that relationship whenever a layout is displayed that is keyed on it. So if you have this, like the other day, we were talking to Centaur, right? Centaur, Margaret and I doing tech support, and it came up where you could build it with this really elaborate one-to-many relationship with all this stuff, or you could script it to go start here, go over here, do some stuff, then come back. That would only run if you push the button. If that makes sense, right? Makes sense. If you build it with a relationship, then whenever you go to layout, it's going to start. That's the whole idea with table occurrence groups. So let me bring this up real quick. Everything that I do in a system with a relationship, I can do with the parent, a child, and if necessary, a grandchild. I don't go generally beyond the grandchild, right? On anything where I actually have a layout that's displaying that. You want to say something, Jacob?
Yeah, it gets difficult to think about when you're out past like grandchildren. If you get to great grandchildren, it's such a pain to try and know what FileMaker is. What you, like you're designing this, you're the coder, you're like, hey, I need to display this information, but it's really difficult when you get out that far. You have that many qualifiers on the relationship, essentially finding out what is it going to show you, what are you actually going to get out of that. You're trying to do a found set over here.
So here's the starting point. I'm going to open this one up here. This is this one. I'm going to go to field definitions and relationships. So here's the deal. So a layout is an anchor buoy is attached to an anchor. These are the buoys. This is the part at the bottom of the ocean. These are parts floating at the top of the ocean, right? The anchor is right here. The layout is right here. If I come to a layout that's displaying on this, it's FileMaker, whether I want to or not, it's going to calculate all the things in here to make these valid. If I go to accounts, you're like, oh, that's a lot more. FileMaker is going to evaluate every one of these. Every one of these. And this is manageable. It's still kind of manageable. But what if you cross-connect everything together, or you have this like, and then this is a parent, child, grandchild, great-grandchild, great-great-great-grandchild, right? You have to figure it out and mentally jump the hoops. What'd you say? What'd you say, Jacob? The words you said, what were the permutation? What the exact words you used were really great. What'd you say? You're trying to understand what it's going to display.
It's difficult to like determine because you're trying to figure out in advance. I'm setting this thing up. I want FileMaker to display for the user, some information here. It's really difficult when you have that many qualifiers on the relationship.
Qualifiers, there's the word. That many qualifiers to get the data from there.
All the little equals or the X's or the
all the way
stuff that you set up on your relationships here. Each one of those little connection points. In this case, I'm calling that a qualifier because it's a relationship specifier. So if you have ID account on the left side, ID account on the right side, they have to contact. Perfect, thank you. Contact on the left side, contact on the right side. They have to match, right? So.
And will they match, and we'll wonder what cases. So there's a performance hit, and then there's the mental, what I call mental gymnastics. But Jacob used the word qualifier. Margaret, write that down. It's really good. So the issue is you have to understand the conditions, understand the qualifiers, and I would rather code it to like you press a button here, and instead of having this total that comes here, I code it I go to a maintenance layout that belongs to this or something, and I do a find manually. I total up the data and bring it back. That way, it only runs when I tell it to. And I don't have to jump through the qualifier, because if I'm over on the main table over here, I can find exactly what I want, because I can express it. But to express it through this relationship, and it becomes a lot. So this topic right here, so ChatGTP got a good one right here. This says overly complex relationships, when instead you should write a little bit of code to do it instead. It saves performance. It saves on your mental brain cycles. You'll live longer, I think. Okay. Insufficient scripting. So writing inefficient scripts can slow down the solution. Okay. Let me help everyone out here. When you're a brand new developer, your scripts are going to be inefficient. It just is. It just is. Do not get freaked out about it. Now, if you are writing scripts over here and you're not taking advantage of any like better techniques or performance techniques or things like that, right, then you're going to be in a situation where maybe you're not delivering the best solution you could to your customers, right? Makes sense? So as a brand new user, I wouldn't worry about efficiency, right? If you're in this area right here, can I speak frankly? You don't give a shit about efficiency. You just want it to work at all, okay? You want the total to show up, the number to show up, the report to print correctly, and if it takes it 20 seconds to work, it's way better than the 3 hours it took you to do it by hand previously on Post-it notes, okay? Oh, 20, 30 seconds, fine. Well, can we make it faster? Oh, it's 5 seconds. I got down to a second, 2 seconds. It's great. Then over here, people start to share the solution. Oh, that's so amazing, Margaret. Would you, or Catherine Centaur. That's so amazing. Can we share that with 10 other people? Yeah, 20 other people. Uh-oh. So if your code was a little, it was good, it was accurate, but not maybe the fastest, it slows down. Did you do something wrong? No, you're a beginning person, right? It's like we got beginning pilots over here who are luckily not to fly the aircraft into the control tower. And I'm being serious, okay? Right? And so, but as they get more and more experienced, and suddenly it's like Maverick and Top Gun, right? I'm going to do the inverted flyback, right? By the tower, okay? So you're going to get better, faster, more maneuverable as you get more experience. So set your expectations appropriately. If Catherine's over here trying to get to this mode over here, she's maybe in here somewhere, maybe in this somewhere, and she's worried about being over here, I would tell you, you be concerned about where you need to be concerned, okay? Jacob, you want to help with this at all?
No, I think that covers the topic well.
Okay.
I would just kind of interject. It's actually a good thing to reiterate. If knowing it's difficult for people to know, having the self-awareness to be like, I'm a junior, or I'm kind of mid-level, or
self-awareness is a huge component.
Yeah, like that's 100%. That's difficult for a lot of people. That said, if you have that, you should temper your own expectations for yourself based on that. Because, for example, like Richard gave in the previous one, if you're a junior coder, let FileMaker do all the stuff automatically for you. That's perfect. Yeah. No, it won't scale, but you'll get something that works actually. And that would be amazing. You'll be able to show that to people and say, hey.
And they're going to say, great job. Your self-esteem is going to go up. Yep. Right. If it's left unchecked, your ego will start getting huge, right? And all that. Yep. But no,
it's 2 years from now when it's the little module that you wrote as a junior coder, it's fantastically successful inside the organization, and you now have way too many records or way too many users, or Lord help you both if you were really lucky. And now it's really slow, and everyone's like, oh man, this great feature, it's so slow. Well, right. Okay. You were a junior when you wrote it. That's fine. We go back and you look at it again and you say, well, maybe you're a mid-level now. You can make an upgrade. You could bring times down from here to, here. All right, cool. Senior coder, same thing.
Next one, ignoring security. Okay. So if you're a beginning person, you're the only one using it. Can I help you with that? No one cares. Okay. You don't care, right? You just want it to work. Once again, listen, people say, how come with starting point, you don't have passwords put on automatically? Because I want you to use it. When you open a starter solution from Claris and Apple, why does it ask you for 12 levels of triple security with biometric scanning on my eyeball? No, because we want you to be successful. Once you're successful and it starts working, then you're like, hey, I should share this. Oh, I should put this on the internet. I can't really do that because, or you shouldn't do it because the password is admin, no password, right? No bueno. right? So ignoring security is an issue when you get to intermediate to senior level, right? And this is where you really, now, if you're a senior person and you're phoning in the security, no bueno. If you're any intermediate person, I'm going to give you a little slap on the wrist and say, let's talk about security, make sure it's turned on. A basic security moment. It's admin. Remember, we talked about FileMaker files by default, admin, no password. So then you say admin 1, 2, 3, 4. Like what I'm doing, I'm demoing on TV. I'm not saying that's best practice. I'm saying that's what we're doing to expedite. I keep looking down in the corner. That's where Jacob's face. I'm talking to Jacob up here. That's the idea that, it's quick and easy. So then someone says admin 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to put it on the server. So then all 20 people in the company are admin 1, 2, 3, 4. It's an easy to guess password. Well, we'll change that to buckwheat fever 55. Buckwheat fever 55. I have to write that one down. That's good. So buckwheat fever 55. Everyone shares that. Well, that's great, except that you have 20 people and one person who's buckwheat fever 55 deleted the financial record, and another buckwheat 55 feet person gave themselves a promotion. And you have no way of knowing who those people are because everyone's using the same credentials. So there's a progression there. Once again, understanding that whether you're beginner or advanced, okay? Now, next one. You want to do the next one here? Limited user testing.
I don't know if I leave it, but it's a great one. Because we like it. Honestly, it's not like there's nothing here that's particular to RCC. We have challenges with clients on this topic, and the challenge is clients don't want to make time to test. You write software for them. They've come to you with a business need. They're paying you to build it. Right, all this great. But then they show up and, it's like, oh, but I have to go click through the process and like make sure everything works. You have to do QA, client, they need to get into the system, test it out, make sure it literally does what they asked for. And if, there's bugs or revisions or that's not quite right, whatever, right? All that kind of stuff. Perfect. However, clients have to make that time. So for me, there's like two parts to limited user testing as a problem. One is you have situations where clients don't want to make enough time for you, to do the testing well so that they can really for themselves identify what the problems are. Like, you're assuming your coder will fix them. The other side though is limited user testing where you have, for example, like management has decided at an organization that it should be done, I'll say whatever it is, a process, a thing should be done a certain way. That's great, right? Like they can just pick that. That makes it really easy for the programmer to create that specific solution. But on the other side, if the users don't actually do it that way, like it's not, that's documented practice, but not actual practice, or you have some difference in process like that, you can cause real serious issues for yourself.
So what we do is you try to get the customers into a room to do testing. And of course, they all walk in like this. Hey, what's going on? Oh, have you seen this latest meme about like pigs that fly? Oh, it's so amazing, right? So literally what I've had to do is they come into a room for testing, all cell phones go in the box. Turn in your cell phone because you're going to sit at the computer. Listen, people would rather clean the toilet than test software, okay? I'm being dead serious. They would rather clean the toilet, and if their phone's sitting anywhere in front of them, they'd be like, oh, it's essential. Well, you're TikToking. It's essential, right? So you have to take the phones away. You have to block out time on their schedule, and they will hate it. You have to somehow try to enforce some sort of, otherwise we have engineers are like, hey, we told you to test, customer say, and then what happens? The customer goes, this doesn't work. I'm outraged. And it's like, well, we told you to test it. We tested it. They didn't test it. So if they don't test it, they won't find the bugs, then they'll be outraged and it'll be your fault. There's no way around this. So some people say, well, why didn't the developer test it? The developer, when you write code, a developer should try a lot of them. I've had a couple engineers who don't even try at all. Like I had a couple of times where an engineer, they build a code, they never press the button once to see if it works, right? And I can remember this conversation with a couple engineers who, I'm not going to embarrass them who they are, but it's Friday night, 7:00, they're trying to get done. The code saved, done. Oh, it works. It's done. They're done, right? And it's a 3-day weekend or Christmas or 4th of July or some sort of big holiday. 4 or 5 days later, they come back. It all is done. So you've got that issue. So you need to think about that. Developers should do basic testing, but they can't really test it because they can't see the errors that they generated, and or they may not understand the workflow. Like for example, if a developer says, "I built this code and I use 3 join tables," that's a warning sign. They use the word J. The J word is like saying the F word in church. Maybe go to church or don't go to church, whatever. So inadequate documentation. So let's talk about this. Customers don't want to pay for documentation. What I'm going to say about documentation is 2 times it got documentation. There's the manual, section 1, how to use a computer. This is the mouse. Clicky, clicky, clicky on the mouse. Okay. What I would say is that customers don't want to pay for that. So what we're going to do is have you document in the application for other developers. So there's user documentation, there's developer documentation. This is so someone opens underneath the hood and they see a script that Catherine wrote, and Catherine wrote, the goal of this script is to chase down the proper tracks with the albums, with the contracts for the different arrangements, right? Because we were talking about music and musical arrangements and all this sort of stuff. And so the idea is that if you write down in your script, the script assumes these conditions, and the script was written by this person, so we know who wrote it. Maybe on a date, maybe that matters. Maybe even the version of FileMaker. That could be, if it's recent, but if you have a piece of code written 15 years ago, you're like, why is this so janky? And they're not even using variables. Maybe it was written before there was even a thing that's called a variable, right? So you write down the dependency. So what is it dependent upon? What does it assume? So if you document as you go, which people hate to do, your life will be easier. Like I try to tell my children as they're cooking in the kitchen, clean as you go. My sister's like this. She refused to clean as she goes. She destroys the kitchen. There's not a clean spot anywhere in this giant kitchen. And then so she spends 3 or 4 hours trying to clean it after the fact, where I kind of clean as I go. I try to, right? Unless it all goes to hell. And so if you document as you go, clean as you go, then you don't have this giant weight hanging over your head, right? So there's that part of it. Jacob, anything about documentation? No? So these are all, once again, these are not FileMaker things. This is what ChatGTP decided as programmers as a whole, what we screw up. Okay. This one right here, when I saw this, I called Jacob. I said, ChatGPT is high. It's worthless. You can't trust it.
This is the one that I was like, oh, it's giving us general programmer advice and not FileMaker programmer advice, because this one is good elsewhere, not in FileMaker. This is like a specifically bad advice for FileMaker, actually. But elsewhere, it makes sense. As a random example, just that I'm familiar with, the PHP programming language has been working to kill might be strong, but incredibly strongly discourage the use of globals for many years now. And that's because in other languages that are not FileMaker, globals are global. Anything in your program can access them.
Margaret, so I'm going to ask a question, a test question. Margaret, how do globals work between users on a hosted solution on a server?
Global fields have information specific to that user only. So if like Margaret enters the word book into like a global field, then Catherine on the other side will not see the word Catherine in the same global field.
Or she won't see book and book in the other field.
Yeah.
So FileMaker engineered globals to be session specific to the machine. Session specific to the machine, not to the user. People tend to assume user, but then if I have 3 computers on my desk, and I have 3 sets, same solutions open on all 3, then I have 3 sets of globals. Those 3 computers are not. That's where we talked about. Did we ever get the preferences? I don't think did we ever get the preferences?
I mean,
Margaret?
We kind of talked about it, but we didn't really actually
the preference table, right? That's the problem. The preference table allows us to have system-wide global settings. Global fields in other systems are truly non-user, non-session specific, and they are a giant weakness where things are shared everywhere. And so globals, FileMaker engineered globals probably on purpose. They probably did this very deliberately to make them session specific, and they cannot cross-pollinate to other people. So if you're a lazy coder and you don't document everything, the globals will not go behind you and share data secretly behind your back. Right? Makes sense. But then people want to share a setting system wide. That's where we have a preference table with 1 record in it. Preference table with 1 record in it. Okay.
And you can even see one of the really easy problems in what ChatGPT wrote here about its complaint about why you don't use globals which the description of it is exactly the opposite of what FileMaker does. So
It is exactly the opposite. So I was just mad, but then but I don't, I haven't coded that deeply in other systems. So I've done some, but not, I don't remember how
Yeah.
globals worked in Fortran and other languages. And so I'm like, okay, well, anyway, so not utilizing built-in features. FileMaker offers many built-in features like scripts, layout tools, and calculation. So I don't get this one because once again, I think this is a generic. It's like you bought a brand new Mercedes-Benz car. Okay, you're driving it around. What's the number one problem that people are Mercedes-Benz? Oh, they don't use all the features of the car. Well, no, there's like a million buttons in there. Use the buttons you need. I don't worry about this one. This one here is wrong. This one here is kind of fluff,
yeah,
right?
I read
This is
the not utilizing built-in features as basically addressing people who write. So there's a thing in I say other programming languages, they'll have a standard library. It's kind of what it sounds like. That's, your whatever programming language you're in comes with a built-in set of tools. I don't know, you want to make a web request, like there's a thing in there for that. It's that kind of, or like an array, right? Like basics.
yeah.
Basics of a programming language. So there are some people who will write stuff fresh every time themselves. And so one of the criticisms of that practice essentially is there's a standard library, please use it. But it's, I don't know, there's not too much to say about that. It's just because FileMaker, you have all the tools built in, and then if you need additional tools, we have plugins. So
or custom functions or whatever, right? So yeah,
exactly.
so
Yep.
some people write their own. They want to write their own, and all the things in the world to get excited about. That ain't one, at least in the world of FileMaker. This is definitely not one. Inadequate documentation and not testing, lack of planning over complex, ineffective scripting. We jumped past this one, inconsistent naming conventions. So I didn't realize I jumped past this. Inconsistent naming conventions. Listen, if you work for Microsoft and you're part of a team working on Office, like the version of Word for Windows 2011 or 2012 or whatever the next version of Windows is going to be, you probably need to use a standard set of naming conventions as you code. In the world of FileMaker, you don't normally have teams that big. You might have a team of 2 or 3 people, and you 3 should get together and decide what your naming convention should be. What I would say is that most FileMaker developers are one man, one person, one woman band, kind of one man band, one woman band kind of thing. And so just pick a naming convention. How about I just not even make it consistent? Just use a naming convention, right? Would be my thought, as opposed to no naming convention, you just throw it together. Okay. That would be my thought. Well, it should have the best possible naming convention ever. Okay. Well, I've had a live stream on naming conventions. Those are my recommendations. I have engineers that work for RCC who go, I can take yours and make it 20% better. Okay, fine. They use that. As long as they use it consistently and document their code as they go, I'm okay with that because we can reverse engineer and triage it. But when you have an engineer who says, oh, I'll make it 20% bigger, and then they don't comment in the application, which that is probably more common. Everyone gets an opinion. When it comes to actually doing it, they don't do it, right? So with that one, inefficient scripting, ignoring security, limited user testing, inadequate documentation, overuse of global fields, not using built-in features, failure to back up regular data. Jacob Taylor to the bridge.
Yeah.
That's why we're having a whole day on this, right? A whole day.
Yeah, we're doing several actually,
Friday.
Technically, but yeah.
Yeah, it's actually Thursday and Friday.
We'll work up to the big one on Friday, but
yeah.
Short version, please back up your databases.
Okay.
That is, in fact, not even FileMaker specific advice, but in this case, it's a FileMaker stream, so we'll say please use FileMaker server. Thank you. But yeah, in general, please back up your databases, all of them. FileMaker.
Yeah, please back up your databases. That would be a really swell. All right, so ignoring performance optimization. Back to the progression of learning. Okay, so what did I say, everyone? If you're a brand new person coding, you just want it to work. You don't give it. Here's the sequence of events. The sequence of events. You are a beginner. You learn how to do it. You make it work. Then someone says, hot damn. That's really amazing. That's great. It saves you so much time, and I have a job very similar to yours. Can I use it too? And you're like, dude, no problem, because I'm awesome and we have FileMaker server. Then the boss buys FileMaker server. You put it on FileMaker server. right? And then what happens is that they go, oh, that's great. Then 10 more people see it. They want it. And then somewhere around 20 people or 25 or 30 people, it starts to go a little slower. And so the performance optimization is going to be brought to your attention by your peers or by your customers. And so you're going to be willingly or not dragged into the world of performance optimization if you don't want them to call you and complain. It's that simple. You want to do performance optimization because, listen, I don't like people call my phone and yell at me unnecessarily. And so I want to make sure it's fast as possible. When I built the solution here at Big Valley, I coded it initially just to get it to work. And then I had a button that took 11 seconds. And I'm like, yeah, that sucks. And the customer tested a little bit and said, yeah, that sucks. And so then I optimized the code a little bit, but then I moved it to FileMaker server where the server would do the code for me. And it went to 1.5 seconds. That's hardly noticeable for most people. Unless you're a coder, then you're like, hey, why did it take so long? So that's all the problem. But I even followed the base rule, get it to work. Now it works. It worked. And the customer says, yes, this works great, but it's unusable because it's 11 seconds. So we're like, okay, how do we make it better, faster, right? And that's the conversation. So you get that into here automatically. I don't know why you would ignore that because people would hate you and you get bad reviews and no one would want to use you anymore. Yeah, don't never use Richard Carlton because it's always slow. I mean, how much of a great business motto is that? Hire us because we're cheap, but our slow, right? So this is like, I consider this to be kind of an obvious thing, right? If people complain it's slow, then go faster. I don't know how to make it faster. Buy our paid training. We have a whole section on optimization where we go through it down in the weeds very technically. If you buy our paid training, look in the pro training under the optimization section, and it's, trust me, you'll find that you have made all the money you paid me for the $200 back for the training or whatever you paid immediately. Trust me, it's good stuff. Inadequate training. You don't have that problem because you're on the live stream with us where training is free every day and we're awesome and Jacob's awesome. I'm just a purveyor of awesome. I'm not awesome. I just give you, we use an awesome tool called FileMaker. I'm surrounded by awesome developers. I just simply repeat what they tell me.
This one's on.
So that was a pretty good one. We are coming up to the end of the hour. So this was the top 10 issues. Understand once again that I think these are all great reminders, but the fundamentals that ChatGTP, ChatPTP, ChatPPP, chat, whatever it is, the AI is going. You ask it questions, it does the cultural equivalent of giving you an answer that it fabricates, even though it doesn't really know the answer. It tries to gather, like when you ask ChatGPT about FileMaker, and you're looking at how to solve a problem, it's going to look at FileMaker and it's going to look at Oracle, SQL, PHP, JavaScript. It's going to look at all those things across its breadth of knowledge, average them together, and give you an answer. You can't, it doesn't, well, I don't know what the setting is, but most people don't want what the setting is to tell it only give me details back relevant to things that you've investigated in FileMaker only, okay? So it's going to give you kind of an average. That was the thing that came up with Nick. And you'll see in there that the hardest part that Nick had to get ChatGPT to do what it was supposed to do is he had to format the request. You
got to convince the bot to like
do it the way
understand your problem correctly. That's fundamentally it is a conversation about client requirements. Like you're the client in this case, the bot is the thing that's delivering the service, just for clarity. Yeah. And so you're like, hey, I need this tool, and it does lots of things. It does many different options, but I need it to do the exact thing that I need. Can you describe it well enough, what your request is, that it will deliver you actually what you need? It's the grandest difficulty. If it's capable of doing it, it'll probably give you a decent answer. But it's a huge, that first question, the prompt, as we call it, but the initial question.
The context of the question, it's not going to understand it, right? Yep. So, and that's the downside of this thing. So maybe someday AI will be great for that, but I just it doesn't know when to say it doesn't know or it needs more information. It just fundamentally, everyone expects it to be brilliant, so it's trying to live up to that expectation, even if it gives you really wrong advice. Please don't ask ChatGPT about your medical condition and what drugs you should be taking. Any other questions that we have? It's a pretty good question. Margaret, this is where you come in and you ask relevant questions.
The only question I would have would be about kind of been a really good basic overview of potential problems. The only potential problem that I'm running into these days is troubleshooting is still a big backtracking mistakes, and that's not really the topic of today. So
We did that yesterday, but you've already
we
forgotten
did
from
kind of
yesterday.
no. I mean, script stepping is fine. Like stepping through like scripts is interesting, but it's more like I've made a mess and I've walked through scripts, but trying to figure out like layout context and like for example, undoing a spider diagram live might be interesting. How you
Undoing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way I train is I try to train people
So
not to
you
build
don't
them
do
in the
that in
first
the
place.
first place?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, if someone's going to pay me to undo a spider diagram, they're going to pay a lot because I'm going to have to slowly beat my way through it, right?
Yeah.
And then, and partly is yeah, and it's the thing with anchor buoy is that you fundamentally understand the layouts are attached to certain spots. With the spider diagram, you don't know where layouts are attached. Like if you go into FileMaker here, I mean, here's a feature request, I guess, for Claris, right? You could how about a little magical dot? Boy, this is a good one, Jacob. Do we want to record? Oh, we are recording this. Here's a feature request. You're in the relational area here, and it shows you a little like a little red dot with a number in it, like a little like how many unread messages you have, the number of layouts that are tied to that table occurrence. It doesn't tell you that. It doesn't show that anywhere. But if you follow anchor buoy properly, we know that there's probably attached to here, probably attached to here, probably attached to there, probably attached to here, and shouldn't be attached over here. Okay. But having FileMaker tell you that there's 2 attached here, and then if there's none, that's just blank. There's nothing there, and then there'd be like 5 or 6 or 8 attached down here. That would be nice.
That's the flavor of stuff I've been asking for. Like one of my like feature requests for them is that you can search all of the properties that are on an object in the object panel. So like if I have for example, a button with an attached script and hello is in that script name, I should be able to type hello into the object box on the left side and get that button because it has that script attached, for example.
I'm going to let you guys go. Tomorrow we're going to be back talking about, what are we talking about tomorrow? How to share for beginners. Catherine, are you going to be here, Catherine? I need Catherine and all the new people. I need your questions. I need you to be active in the conversation. I'm going to be in the sound booth with Margaret. I'm not going to be petting the rotor blades at all. Okay? Yes?
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We greatly appreciate it. Have a good Halloween. Enjoy yourself. Do not run over any children.
Right.
So,
yeah, look both ways, please.
Yeah, no. Make sure that the gremlins in front of you are safe. Goodbye. Have a good one.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!